Looking at a baseball metaphor, you definitely took some swings at some pitches outside your strike zone, and you fouled or bunted out, ground out
Yeah.
or something. So
Yep.
you learned a lot of lessons. Now, what
We
is a
did.
good business? You stay disciplined. What does the characteristics of a good e-commerce business look like? Like,
Yeah.
okay, the revenue has to be top line what?
Has to be at minimum like 7 figures in the last 12 months
All
at
right,
minimum.
and the bottom
Yep.
line has to be what kind of margin on that?
Yeah. So at
Above
least,
double digits to what?
yeah, I mean, at least a 15% net profit margin
Okay,
on
and
that.
the cost of goods would be what, 50%, somewhere right around there,
Yeah. I
or
mean, it's hard
less.
to say just because, in some markets, you pay less per click. And so therefore you can afford a higher COGS. In other markets, it's a little tighter, there's more competition. And so, you need a lower COGS to actually, be competitive. So it really depends. But
And so it depends on what you have to pay per click and cost of acquisition of a customer, right?
correct. Yep.
Yeah, through that
Yep.
funnel.
Correct. Yep.
When you look at the expenses, what do you look for when you're looking down the chart of accounts and you see expenses? Hey, these are in line or these are out of line. It's a red flag. I'm passing. Or you discount it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a red flag. I mean, it wouldn't be a red flag. It would be a yellow flag if, for example, because we have P&Ls, we're reviewing in the acquisition process with
Right.
the new, potential acquisitions, and then we get to a stage in our due diligence process where we have to go through, their business account and really verify all the transactions. And if something shows up that wasn't showing up on the actual P&L, that's a yellow flag. And then we're going to reach out to the owner seller and be like, hey, what is this? Can you explain what this is? Why wasn't this on the P&L? And that wouldn't be something that we would completely decide right away that we don't want to buy the business. It just really depends on what the owner seller says, and we'll go from there, and also what it is and what the amount is, because if it's a high, if it's a debt, a high liability, obviously, that's going to be a reason for us to walk away from the deal. But we're working with, some, successful businesses here and business owners that, are, a little bit more seasoned and, usually aren't, trying to hide stuff from us, because, they don't want to waste their time and we don't want to waste our time either. And, we haven't found that too much as we've increased our buy box, into businesses that are, ran by, seasoned, experienced entrepreneurs.
So what you're translating, now that you're not swinging at these pitches, these outside your strike zone, there are these bigger businesses are more honest and transparent
Usually,
about their
not
business.
always, but usually,
Not
usually,
always, but yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Let
usually.
me go back to that balance sheet. What do you do if you do see the debt on there? If it's a debt to equity ratio, it's really high. Is that a red flag or yellow flag you pass on immediately,
Oh
or
yeah,
go, what was the debt used for? Right?
yeah. I mean, because we don't want to buy any negative net profit businesses, and so if something like that shows up, we won't even consider it. I mean, it won't even get past step one. Like in our first step in our due diligence checklist, there, we looked to find out whether or not there is that much debt in the business, and if there
Yeah.
is that much debt in the business, it's not a good business because we want to buy a company that's profitable on day zero,
Right.
meaning that we're stepping into a profitable business with good cash flow. And so we don't want a business that doesn't have that.
Yeah. Uh, when you buy a cash flow business, what do you look for in paying in a multiple on these seven-figure businesses for an
Yeah.
e-commerce? What is like standard? Like, hey, do you use all the formulas, discount cash flow, or do you use comps, or all of the above?
Yeah. So, one of my mentors is the CEO of DealFlow, a brokerage, and also it's co-owned by several other mentors, Josh Snow and Los Hustle. And they've told me fairly recently that a business that is doing up to 5 million annually can get up to a 4x multiple in e-commerce. If it's
5 million annually, is that top line or you bottom
top
line?
line,
Top
gross
line.
revenue,
Okay. Okay.
top line, yep, yeah. And then if it's doing over 5 million annually, then it could get up to a 6x. So that's how we view, multiples when we're applying multiples to potential acquisitions.
Yeah. And how much multiple do you bake in if the business is like, hey, we got a lot of reoccurring customers, or there's a really big profit margin? It's going to
Yeah.
help that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's a very desirable, those are two very desirable traits. Having, reoccurring revenue and also having, high profit margin. Yeah. I mean, we would definitely, give it more of a, increase on the multiple, if, we're looking at a business that has those characteristics. So if it's doing less than 5 million annually, there's a chance that it'll get around 3.5 maybe. I mean, a 4 is rare, when it's up to a 5 million, annual revenue. It really has to have like a lot of characteristics like trademarks, IPs, patents, unique product that can't be ripped off, that nobody else sells, due to, maybe a worldwide patent, for example, and it has those characteristics you mentioned. Then maybe we may make the argument that there's a 4x there, but usually it's about a 3 to 3.5.
And do you have a committee that you go around and talk to in this group, or as you go now that you're by yourself, or?
I've got a great team behind me. My head of acquisitions, he's a stellar guy, very experienced in the M&A space, and he runs our acquisitions now. At one point I was the man doing a lot, and including head of acquisition. But luckily, he's on the team and he's doing a great job there. So I actually defer to him in a lot of cases. But then if there's if we need outside wisdom, we'll reach out to like the mastermind that we're in.
The
We'll
deal
get
flow
feedback
guys.
from
Yeah.
different people. And luckily, I've been in the space now for over 10 years. So I have a solid Rolodex. I've got people I could text that are
What are your
very,
thoughts? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
very experienced M&A people that can give me feedback. So if we need that feedback, we'll get it. But usually we can handle it internally.
Yeah. What kind of decision making do you put on if a business has, 90, 100% of customer acquisition comes from PPC, versus a business where, 50% comes from PPC and 50% comes from a great social media following, like let's say 100,000 Instagram followers, 100,000 Facebook followers. And he's done a great job of building a community there.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so basically, you're talking about a company that actually has a brand versus a
Yeah.
company that doesn't have a brand but uses paid advertising and has had success.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely give more weight to the company that has a brand and also is using paid advertising. And and we've seen, through the application of the ARM5 formula that when a company has a brand and then you do paid advertising, the potential for the ROI from paid advertising is massive
It's a higher
versus,
click through
oh
ratio.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, not the click through ratio, but just the return on ad spend. So like for example, I'll just use this as an example. We worked with a successful supplement business back in 2020 and 2019, and in 2020 we saw days where we were spending like $1,200 and we were making back $135,000. Ridiculous. Um,
What? For
yeah,
what kind of product was that?
yeah, they had a whole suite of supplements, and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah, and the reason why, and it was like cortisol, formula control, for example. There was what's it called? What's the supplement that helps you with your stomach? Probiotics. That's right.
Yeah, probiotics.
Yeah, like I take their probiotics still, for example, and yeah, that company saw a 600% ROI from every dollar spent on ads throughout 2020 with us. And that's because they had a strong brand coming in and we maintained the brand and kept pushing more valuable content to build the brand up even further. And so a brand that actually has that, there's so much potential for paid advertising and the return on ad spend we can see
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So do you like supplement companies, the vitamins line? And the reason I guess, like, I clicked on something at Jocko WikiLeaks, and
Yep.
uh, he's got a huge brand with his
Hmm.
podcast and his background, and now he's selling vitamins and his little protein cookies, and he's going to follow
Yep.
you everywhere if you click on his product.
Oh, I know.
He's got to be
Uh,
making a ton of cash on that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's I've seen a lot of examples like that where, you've had someone build a very strong brand like for themselves, and then they've added e-commerce, and then that e-commerce company just blows up because, he has a brand, he has trust.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It really makes a big impact.
Yeah. So how would you score it if it's a celebrity versus just a great product? If I think about looking at a brand, I can't think of one that would not led by a celebrity. Like if they didn't have a celebrity versus having a celebrity, how do you score that? And he goes, okay, it's a 4x. No, it's a 3.8x.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, but products are kind of a dime a dozen. I mean, there's always going to be competition. There's always going to be other, products that are competition, whether it's the same product or similar products, and so what really gets a product to stand out is the brand and what's attached to it. And so if a company has a celebrity attached to it, I mean that's going to be a much more valuable company, and they're going to command a higher multiple easily. So I would give like an ecom company that has a great product but not a really good brand. Let's just say to your question a second ago that it's a company that is that lives off of paid advertising. 90 to 100% of their sales comes from that. They would probably get like a 2 to 2.5. More or less. Whereas a company that is more established and has maybe some sort of ambassador, some sort of influencer behind the brand, they're more eligible to get like a 2.5 to 3.5, depending
Yeah.
on other characteristics in the brand.
Yeah. And what about longevity? Do you look for companies that have been around for 5 years or longer, 10 years? Or,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can say something
that
like
gives you
growing,
weight.
hey, one of your guys is like 3 years into this and he's doing real well with it, but he wants to sell.
Yeah, no, that gives weight. I mean, we're always looking for tenured companies. We don't want to buy a company that's only been around for like a year. It hasn't, really been around
Right.
long enough. That could be just a flash in the pan success. Like our next two acquisitions that we're closing at the end of this month to mid September. These are both tenured companies, especially one of them. One of them has been around for 6 years, for example. So we're always looking for companies that have been around for several years at minimum.
Yeah. And what weight do you put on the motivation for selling? What's the
Um,
motive for selling for that? I mean, it's like if it's a 25-year-old, he just luckily got, he hit a home run in the first attempt versus a guy that's, been doing it for a while and he's just tired and wants to retire. That's kind of both ends of the spectrum.
yeah, I hear you. I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight either way. I mean, you always want to try to meet them where they're at
Yeah.
and appeal to their why for selling in order to get them to the finish line. So that's the way that I would apply. There is I would try to find a way to make it a win-win in our conversations and the offer, etc. So this way it's good business for everybody involved.
Yeah. What do you do with businesses you seem to be overvalued? I mean, it's a nice business and it's a little bit overvalued, maybe just by 1x.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I'll use an example I have right now on my table or my desk, I should say. So I've got a business that is owned by a friend of mine that I've known for about 9 years now, quite some time, and it's a great business. I mean, it nets 2 million annually, and he literally works maybe like 2 days a week. He's got 5 team members. I mean, it's a very efficient business and it's very well known in the entrepreneur space. It's a media company. It's not a physical product e-commerce company, but I see a lot of
Does this guy
synergy.
drive around in a Rolls Royce in Phoenix?
No,
No. Okay.
no. But so he's valuing his company at a 7x, which is really, really aggressive. Um, I don't know if it's really worth that. In this case, like I would turn to people that have more M&A experience than I do, and I would get their feedback on this, and see what they say, when it comes to approaching this business and talking to him about buying a majority share of his business, because I've got people around me that have been doing this much longer than I have. They really know how to value a business properly, and they'll advise me accordingly. And I'll go from there. I mean, I might keep the 7x. If it's his offer, then it's our terms. Yeah, because I go according to this rule. Their offer, our terms, or our offer, their terms.
Mm-hmm.
So but it's hard to answer that question, just because every business and every situation is unique. But if a business is overvalued, you typically ground it and come at them with a much lower offer, and then you start from there. It's just like
Right.
it's just like any negotiating. You try to get them to start low with you, and then you try to you work your way up, and meet somewhere in the middle